They said that when you set yourself up for tomorrow, you are ensuring that it's success because you take all the decision making out of the next day. And if the night before you're mapping out where your day is going to go, then the next day when you're looking at the calendar, you don't have to think about it at all. It's just execute.
So Tanner, do you want to record a podcast today?
No, I'm good. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but we'll start it off different. But do you think that making decisions is hard for a lot of people?
I do. I mean, I think that there's definitely strong-willed people who make every decision, and there's people who like all the decisions made for them. And how those people develop on their own is, their own backstory. But I think having 7 kids, we see it so differently in all the kids. And even, having a son who's a teenager now that I think of as a determined, strong-willed person. But what I've been learning lately is that he is incapable of making decisions for himself. And I've been going with him. He's all involved in sports. He does wrestling, he does baseball, he does football, he does bowling. He'll try anything just to get out there and do it. But I haven't, until I got more involved with it and started going with him to these things, I didn't realize how indecisive he is. Mm-hmm. And what I gathered from that, and this is trying to take extreme ownership whenever I can, is that we never put him in situations where he needs to make decisions. We tell him when to go to bed. We tell him when dinner's ready. We tell him what time, So when he's asked, do you want to do something? His answer is a shrug. And so just recognizing that pattern, I've been trying to break it more and give him more options and things. And there's a book, I think it's How to Talk So Kids Will Listen or something like that, or it's Raising Lions. I think that's the one. Okay. Raising Lions is a really good one. It's a parenting book. And they talk about primarily difficult children, ones that have what a lot of people would call ADHD or attention issues or whatever, hyperactivities. And
sounds like you're
my child
on the opposite side of that.
Yes,
you don't believe in it.
Well, I do to a point, but I think more along Einstein's quote of, if you judge an elephant by its ability to climb a tree, it'll grow up its whole life thinking that it's stupid. Mm-hmm. And one thing that my wife is phenomenal at is not suppressing our kids' abilities. Like our 5-year-old son is hyper, he's energetic, and he's a problem solver. But how I see that through my lens is he's disobedient, he's reckless, and he doesn't listen. So I can look at it through that lens and say, when he says, "Hey, can I have some popcorn?" And I say, not right now, I'm working. He'll climb up on the stove, grab the popcorn up on the top cover, throw a pan on and pour the kernels in. Because what he heard is, Dad's busy, so I'm going to have to figure this out on my own. And all I'm seeing is disobedience. My wife tries to remind me constantly that he's determined and he's a problem solver.
And he's making decisions.
Decisions, right.
We'll go back to your 13-year-old whenever I interrupted you.
No, that's, I mean, just seeing how we as parents are constantly developing. We're changing our outlook on the world and how we then translate that to them. Each kid got a completely different childhood experience. And you look at how our 18-year-old is now, where she's extremely responsible, she's respectful, everyone has their attitude stages, but, she's very self-sufficient. And then to have another child that can't put their shoes on if you don't tie them for them, pretty much, and just how can they grow up? Or the biggest one is, even when our 18-year-old comes back home, she'll come and help wash dishes. We can't pay the kids to wash the dishes, her younger siblings. And so my wife will lose her mind about, how is it that your older sister can figure all this stuff out? And so we talked it through, and the oldest, she had to have those responsibilities because she was the oldest when my wife, was then taking care of the next youngest and the next youngest and the next youngest. So she had to kind of fall into that responsibility, whereas the next ones always had their older sister to rely on. And each one of them, when you get to the third one down, now has two older sisters to rely on and doesn't have to make a decision because every decision is made for him. And so just trying to put things into practice now. And one of the ways is we try and ask the kids, like at the beginning of the month, we're put into practice and it's been working good, is what do they want to have for dinner, certain nights of the week. And getting them to come and make these kinds of decisions is helping them kind of realize that they do have a voice, they do have a say. And I'm not saying like give them the opportunity to say, hey, what time do you want to go to bed? Like, because I don't agree with that soft parenting stuff, let the child lead the parenting. But when in the Raising Lions, they talk about this push-pull relationship, especially of having someone like my 5-year-old son, who I say, hey, you need to put a jacket on. I don't want to put a jacket on. And then it just becomes, I said, put a jacket on. He says, I don't want to. And then it's just an ego push-pull. Giving him an option and saying, would you rather wear your red jacket or your blue jacket today? And you're giving him two options, which is also a negotiating skill. But that aside, giving him the option, it gives them the chance to make a decision. But that decision, I don't care whether he wears red or blue. I just don't want him to freeze outside. Mm-hmm. And so starting to give them those opportunities, but also being firm with that and saying that if they say, well, I don't want to wear a jacket, well, you have to wear a jacket. So you either need to wear the red or the blue. And those are little tricks that I wish I had learned earlier. Granted, we can only grow as fast as time allows us to, but I think when we got into entrepreneurship, I was obsessed with business books and real estate books. And, it took me time to learn to put the Bible into my daily practice. And then through making the Bible more of a priority than the business books, I've also realized that I'm falling short on the parenting. Why am I not putting as much effort into parenting books and becoming a better leader, a better father, a better husband as I am in becoming a better business owner? And so I think we talk about soft skills, like that is the most important soft skill, is communicating with kids and understanding how impressionable they are, especially in the 1 to 10 age. I mean, they are little mirrors. And I mean, breaks my heart sometimes seeing my kids come and they'll set up a cardboard box, put a chair next to it and put a piece of, a toy, and they'll sit there and be like, look, I'm mom and dad. And I'm like, oh man, like, is that the stain that I'm going to have on my kids? Is that's all they remember?
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about this with your kid and then trying to get them of that habit. So I don't think I realized it until more recently, but Valerie's got that habit that she doesn't make decisions. Like she'll call me at the grocery store, hey, do you want asparagus or Brussels sprouts tonight for dinner? I don't care. Just choose one. They're the same thing. Like they're vegetable, stuff like that. Or like she'll ask me a question, like what do like trying to plan something, but she never gives me her opinion. Like she just basically lays out the information and never gives an input. And so I just started not giving an input either. And it's interesting, like I want to know what you want too. Like, it's not just my decision making. Like, how are we doing this with the kids? Like, because our kids are in sports activities and stuff, so they're always going two different ways. And she never unless she really, really doesn't want to do something. Like a lot of times she hates doing soccer, so she's like, "I'll go do this." That's the only time. It's like if she really doesn't want to do something. So.
Well, I don't know if the fighting fire with fire approach is really working, but I mean, I definitely get that because my wife is very decisive in a lot of ways, but when it comes to dinners and stuff, she is the pickiest eater, but can never make a decision on what we're going to have. Really? And so that's why implementing that calendar of saying we're having this every night, I can't even tell you how much time it's taken off our hands just to spend one day at the beginning of the month mapping out what's for dinner. And we don't follow it to a T, but it's a guideline. And so when we look at it at the beginning of the month and we just map out what every night is, and then what we started doing is keeping track of the things that are hits where we don't have to pull teeth to get the kids to finish their food. So we make sure that those are on there the next month, which is usually mac and cheese.
Yeah.
But just doing those things, and it's taken hours out of every day, because where we wake up in the morning, and immediately it's a cup of coffee right to work, and then we're working up until 6, 7 o'clock. If we start thinking about what's for dinner at 6 o'clock, we're not eating until 8:30, and the kids aren't getting bed until 10:30, 11, and then the rest of the night, drags on, and the morning is rough. It's just a never-ending cycle. So by implementing that, it took all the decision making out of it, because we already decided what we're having for dinner tonight. And if there's a conversation of, hey, what do you want to have for dinner? Then usually it's leftovers or what we have on the calendar.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because we don't do it as much as we should or much as we talk about it, but have like a Sunday planning meeting and plan what's in the week, because all those things add up. All these little decisions,
They take time.
they take time.
They take away your focus.
I'll use this as an example. So we had some kids come by this last summer, and they're like, "Hey, can we cut your grass every week or something like that?" And it was a good price, and Valerie paid them to do it. I don't mind cutting the grass. I don't even mind the time it takes to cut the grass. The thing I hate the most about cutting the grass is planning on cutting the grass.
Yeah.
So I'll do it Friday afternoon. Okay, was it raining? When's the last time it rained? What do we have going on Friday afternoon? Like, if it takes me an hour and a half to cut the grass, it takes me an hour and a half to plan cutting the grass.
Right.
And Valerie's like one of those people that wants the grass cut every week.
Mm-hmm.
And so if something happens, if I typically plan on cutting the grass every Friday, but something happens Friday afternoon, kids have an activity, I'm just making something up, but now it gets missed, or now I got to replan it, and it's just this never-ending cycle of.
Well, and looking at the value of that time, if you value your time at $50, $100 an hour, and it takes you an hour and a half just to think about cutting the grass, even if that's sporadically throughout the week, it's a distraction, then that's $150 that you just lost, where you could pay someone $25 a week to handle it. And I think people are so, they hold their money so tightly, they don't want to give up the $25 for something I can just do myself. But there's so many different aspects to that. And in the food area, I mean, there's the fast and fresh boxes or whatever the meal prep things are. I mean, yeah, that's an expense. But if I could get back all the time that we've lost just trying to figure out what we're going to eat, it would be such a good expense.
I don't know if a family of 9 can afford those meal boxes, but
yeah, and they were pretty big boxes. You'd have to order for 3, but
yeah, it would.
And not to mention they're Hawaiian, so it's funny whenever we look at serving sizes. Like, we went and picked up chicken nuggets, and I look and it says 9 servings, and I hold the bag. I'm like, let's divide that by 2. Like, this is 4.5 servings.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm not gonna go on the food tangent, but yeah, it's interesting just having all that in your head, how much space it takes up. Like, I pretty much wear the same damn thing every day. Like, my closet is so boring.
Take away all the decisions.
Yeah, like
But there's a part of that too with you said about the Sunday planning, and I can't remember what book it was I read. We really need to get better about these citing our sources, but they said that when you set yourself up for tomorrow, you are ensuring that it's success, because you take all the decision making out of the next day. And if the night before you're mapping out where your day is going to go, then the next day when you're looking at the calendar, you don't have to think about it at all. It's just execute.
Yeah, there's somebody that, once again, I don't know what book this is from, but they say your day starts the night before, and plan out your day the night before. I don't do that, but
I don't. I plan out my week, and I have a guideline of what I'd like to do during the week, and it always changes. But what I've gotten better at, and I've tried many different calendars, and I can't find a perfect way to do it. But like you said, I think just creating that momentum and starting it is the most important. Using my Outlook calendar and mapping out that from, my plan is to get up at 4, which never happens, but to get up at 4, start my journaling, read the Bible, do my devotional, stretch, exercise. Then by the time I'm ready to take the kids to school, I come back and I'm ready to get to work. And then, from 7 to 9, I'm prospecting. And from 9 to 11, I'm cold calling. And having all those things mapped out doesn't always happen. Things pop up constantly. But I make sure to not use my calendar going forward. I use my calendar in arrears too. So if my day didn't map out the way that I planned it, then I go through and I change what did I actually do during that time? And maybe I didn't account for travel time, or maybe I didn't account for whatever. Is there a way I can fill that time with other things like following up with clients while I'm in the car, or whatever, just to use that time more efficiently? Then when I'm looking at it the next week, I can look back and say, okay, consistently over the last 3 weeks, my Monday, I have not had the time to do prospecting. So I need to move that prospecting later. And the big thing is the rocks. You remember that analogy? They talk about it in traction, but it's the whole idea of when you fill the jar with the big rocks first, and then the gravel, and then the sand, and then the water, then you have room for everything. Making sure that my family time is blocked off and I'm planning everything else out around it. And then identifying what those other smaller pebbles are, which is maybe the things that keep my business moving forward. And then everything else trickles down to the things that are less important, but still want to do. And adjusting my schedule accordingly. So I have everything color coded. It's the most organized I've ever been in my life. And I still daily have to correct it.
I'm about to say you messed up today.
Yes. Yes.
So what are you doing other than blue jacket or red jacket for your son? What other items are you doing to get him to better make decisions? Or I'm struggling to make a decision on what word I want to use next.
Yeah, I think one of the things is getting him to think through things. And, something as simple as his friend puts a lot of pressure on us to go hang out, and I can tell that he doesn't really want to go to this whatever play or something, and so I go and ask him, like, do you want to go to that? Well, I don't know. Can I? Like, do you want to? Well, I don't know. Like, okay, so if I say no, are you gonna be upset? Well, maybe. Okay, so it sounds like you do want to go. And so just getting him to think through things rather than just react. And it's not a perfect system, but just giving him the ability to think through things and come to his own conclusion. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we're working on.
Yeah, I read that the more decisions you make, the easier it is to make decisions. Like if you let something linger, it takes up too much. Talking about cutting the grass, takes up too much brain energy.
Yeah.
And then it starts affecting every other thing.
Right.
There was South Africa or something like that. There was this parole thing. I don't know if you ever heard the story.
No.
So they did a study on decisions. And the more decisions you make, the harder it gets to make decisions. So it's one of the reasons, like when you come home at night, like you're more drained. Temperature's a little shorter with your kids. So what they studied, these judges, that they did paroles in the morning and then after lunch. You were more likely to get paroled if you had a morning parole hearing than if you had an evening parole or afternoon parole hearing. Just because they were more likely to say yes in the morning and more likely to say no in the afternoon. And it just comes down to a matter of decisions. So I think the study was like in the morning, like in the beginning, it was almost all yeses. Then towards lunchtime, there's started getting more no's, and then there was a couple yeses, like right after lunch because they had taken a break and they're fueled. And then by the end of the evening, it was like just straight no's.
Yeah.
And that's how life is. Like I know with my kids, 6 o'clock rolls around, like the answer is default no.
Yeah.
And I might have shared this before. Valerie's a default no person. And I told Alyssa one day, I was like, you need to change your questions. Like, we were talking about this on the previous podcast, but start with no. Ask Valerie no, or ask your mom no-oriented questions. Hey, mom, is it an issue if I go hang out with blah, blah, blah? No, because she's likely to say no. Don't say, hey, mom, can I go here? Because the answer is still going to be no. Hey, is it a problem if I go here? And her answer is still no. So she wins.
Mhm.
Alyssa gets the answers she wants, and it's all right in the world.
So it sounds like start with no instead of getting to yes.
I think it's better. That's my personal 2 cents, but I don't have a ton of experience, I guess. But
yeah. Well, I mean, for this episode, I think that the thought that I'll leave with is just to audit how your parenting is affecting the way that your kids think. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's I think we constantly need to work on the soft skills in our lives. And how do you become a better person? You know, you talk about reading the Bible. I like Proverbs. They have a lot of things in Proverbs. We should do a recording just on Proverbs.
No,
and
absolutely. I saw a video yesterday where the guy left this advice that where most people are praying or are reading the Bible wrong. And he said, before you even open the Bible, it's like you need to start with the reason of the Bible and pray over the book and ask for help with whatever it is that you're struggling with. And then go to Proverbs, go to Psalms, and find what it is that you are looking for answers for. And when you open that door before even opening the book, it's much more likely that you're going to find your answers. I'm going to try it. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
We normally just open the book, and he's like, when you open the book and start immediately jumping into your problems, you're starting with you, and you need to start with the reason for the book.
Yeah, I mean, if I start talking on this, we're going to go down this rabbit hole, and
Save it for next time.
I'll save it for another time. But yeah, it's. I do think that soft skills it matters most in life, whether it goes to parenting. I wish psychology was taught more. I wish I knew more about psychology. I wish there's a lot of psychology books, like textbooks, but I don't know of a lot of, I'll call it layman psychology books out there. I wish I...
Start with Raising Lions.
Raising Lions?
Raising Lions, that's a good one.
I'll have to put that one on the list. But yeah, it's... Books have psychology in them, but I kind of want to... I don't want a textbook because most textbooks suck. But, so yeah, that's a struggle of mine. I wish I learned more about psychology without...
Well, leave that for the viewers.
Yeah.
You got a psychology book that's more of a how-to, then drop it in the comments.
Drop in the comments. That's one soft skill. Communication, psychology. I think those are sales.
Absolutely.
Probably the 3 biggest ones. So anyhow, I know you got to get somewhere, so we'll... anything else?
No. I think we covered a lot.